The Alpha forced his Luna to accept another queen. Then she vanished without a word. Elena Voss had been Luna of the Blackthorn Pack for 3 years, and in that time she had never once doubted her place beside Alpha Damon Blackthorn. She had stood with him through cold winters when food ran short, through the loss of good warriors, through long nights of planning and worry. She knew every scar on his hands, and every silence he carried. She thought she knew everything about him. She was wrong. It happened on a Tuesday evening, in the great hall where the pack gathered for important announcements. Elena walked in expecting to hear news about the harvest, or perhaps an update on the border patrols. Instead, she found the hall full, the elders seated in their formal rows, and a woman she had never seen standing beside her husband. The woman was beautiful, in a sharp, practiced way. Her hair was the color of dark wine, and she wore robes stitched with silver thread that marked her as someone of high status. She stood close to Damon, closer than a stranger should stand, and she was smiling like she already belonged there. "Elena," Damon said, and something in his voice made her stomach drop. "This is Serafina. She is joining our pack." Elena waited for more. Surely there was more. Perhaps Serafina was a healer, or an ambassador, or a warrior seeking shelter. But the elders were nodding slowly, the way they nodded when something had already been decided, and Damon would not quite meet her eyes. "Joining us as what?" Elena asked, keeping her voice calm even as her heart began to pound. Damon straightened his shoulders, the way he always did before saying something difficult. "As my second mate, as a queen alongside you." The words landed like stones in still water. For a moment, Elena could not speak at all. She had heard of such arrangements in old stories, in packs from generations past, but never in her lifetime, and never in her own home. "The alliance with the Thornwood Pack depends on this," Damon continued quickly, as if speed could soften the blow. "Serafina's bloodline carries a protective magic we need. Our territory has enemies on every side, Elena. This isn't about us. It's about survival." Around them, the elders murmured their agreement. A few pack members shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Elena with pity or confusion. Serafina said nothing, but her eyes studied Elena carefully, as if trying to measure how much trouble she would be. Elena felt every eye in the room on her. She understood, in that moment, that she had 2 choices. She could argue, cry, or refuse, in front of the entire pack, and give them a memory of her falling apart. Or she could hold herself together and decide, quietly, what she would do next. She chose the second. "I see," she said simply. She turned to Serafina and gave a small, polite nod. "Welcome to Blackthorn territory." Then she walked out of the hall with her head high, and no one saw the tears until she was already gone from sight. That night, Damon came to their chambers late, smelling of the celebration feast the elders had insisted on holding. He found Elena sitting by the window, still and quiet, staring out at the dark tree line. "You could have said something in there," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You could have asked me questions. Instead, you just walked out." "What would you have told me?" Elena asked without turning around. "That you decided this weeks ago, probably, and never once mentioned it to me? That you let me hear it standing in front of the whole pack, like I was a stranger who needed to be informed of pack business?" Damon rubbed his face with both hands. "I was going to tell you tonight, privately, but the elders pushed the announcement forward before I could speak to you." "That's not an apology," Elena said. "That's an excuse." He didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. And Elena realized, sitting there in the dark, that the man she had trusted with everything had decided her feelings mattered less than politics, and had let others make that decision alongside him. "I need you to understand something," Damon tried again, softer now. "This doesn't change what you are to me. You are still my Luna. Serafina is only here for the alliance. Nothing between us has to change." Elena finally turned to look at him. "Everything has already changed, Damon. You just don't see it yet." She said nothing else that night. In the morning she rose early, before the sun had fully cleared the trees, and she was gone before anyone else in the pack house had woken. Damon did not notice her absence until midday. At first, he assumed she had gone for a walk to clear her head, something she often did when she needed space to think. By evening, when she still had not returned, he sent scouts to search the usual paths she favored, the quiet trail by the river, and the old orchard on the eastern side of their land. They found nothing. No scent, no tracks, no sign that Elena had passed that way at all. By the next day, worry had turned into something closer to fear. Damon personally led a search party along the eastern ridge, the border of their territory that marked the edge of lands they no longer controlled. There, the trackers stopped, confused. Elena's scent simply ended, as if she had walked to that point, and then disappeared into the air itself. A cloaking charm, one of the older trackers said, kneeling to examine the ground. Someone hid her trail on purpose. This isn't natural. Damon felt something cold settle in his chest. Elena had not simply wandered off in grief. She had planned this, carefully enough to seek out magic that could hide her from an entire pack of trained trackers. He returned home with no answers, and the pack house felt different without her in it. Elena had always been the quiet center of the Blackthorn Pack, the one who remembered every pup's name, who settled arguments between warriors before they escalated, who made the Great Hall feel like a home instead of just a meeting place. Without her, the halls felt cold, and the pack members moved through their days with a kind of hesitant sadness that no one spoke about directly. Serafina noticed it too. She had expected some resentment when she arrived, some awkwardness as the pack adjusted to a new queen among them. What she had not expected was for the entire pack to seem to be mourning, as if their Luna had died rather than simply left. They loved her, Serafina said to Damon one evening, watching pack members eat their meals in near silence. Truly loved her. This isn't just about losing a leader. I know, Damon said quietly. Then why did you agree to this arrangement at all, if it meant losing her? Damon did not have a good answer. He had told himself, over and over, that the alliance was necessary, that their enemies on the northern border grew stronger every season, and that Serafina's bloodline carried protective magic that could shield the pack from threats no ordinary warrior could fight. All of that was true. But sitting in the empty hall, listening to the silence where Elena's laughter used to be, he wondered if he had made the right choice for the wrong reasons, rushing into an agreement without giving Elena the respect of a real conversation first. Weeks passed with no word from Elena. Damon threw himself into pack business, training warriors and strengthening the border. But at night, he found himself standing by the window where she used to sit, staring out at the same dark trees she had once watched. It was one of the pack's oldest elders, a woman named Marin, who had served 3 generations of Blackthorn alphas, who finally told him something he had never known. You do understand what Elena truly was to this pack, don't you? Marin asked him one quiet afternoon, finding him alone in the empty hall. She was my Luna, Damon said, my mate. She was more than that. Marin lowered her voice, though there was no one else nearby to hear. Elena was the last surviving heir of the Voss bloodline. Her family's pack was destroyed 10 years ago, wiped out by enemies who wanted their territory and their old protective magic. Elena survived because she was young and far from home when it happened. She came to us with no name, no pack, and no protection, and she never told anyone the truth of where she came from, not even you, because the old laws are clear. A Luna who is set aside for another queen loses the protection of her alpha's pack. If certain enemies had learned who she truly was while she stood unprotected, she would have been in grave danger. Damon felt the floor shift beneath him. Why didn't she tell me? Because she trusted you completely, until the day she learned that trust alone wasn't enough to keep her safe within her own home. Marin's eyes were sad, but steady. She didn't run from heartbreak alone, Damon. She ran because she understood, faster than you did, exactly what your decision meant for her safety, once Serafina stood beside you as an equal. The truth settled over Damon like a heavy stone. He had been so focused on saving the pack from outside threats that he had not considered how his own decision had stripped away the protection Elena depended on, leaving her exposed to dangers she had spent 10 years hiding from. He needed to find her, not just to bring her home, but to make right what he had broken. It took 2 more months of careful searching, following faint rumors and old contacts, before Damon finally traced Elena to a small town near the southern border, far from Blackthorn territory. She was living quietly there, under a different name, working alongside a small community that, as Damon soon learned, held old ties to the original Voss pack. They had recognized her the moment she arrived, and rather than exposing her, they had taken her in and given her protection that Damon's own pack had failed to provide. He found her in a small garden behind a modest house, kneeling in the soil, tending to a row of herbs. She looked different somehow, calmer in a way he had not seen in a long time, though her eyes sharpened with wariness the moment she saw him standing at the garden gate. "You shouldn't be here," she said, rising to her feet and brushing the dirt from her hands. "I know the truth now," Damon said. "About your bloodline, about why you left." Something flickered across her face, surprise perhaps, or relief that the secret she had carried alone for so long was finally shared. "Then you understand I couldn't stay. Not the way things were arranged." "I do understand," Damon said, "and I'm not here to force you back into anything. I came to tell you that I was wrong, and that I should have trusted you enough to talk with you, before making a decision that changed both our lives without your voice in it." Elena studied him for a long moment, and Damon could see her weighing his words carefully, the way she had always weighed important decisions, with patience and clear thought rather than rushed emotion. "I'm not the same person who left that hall," she said finally. "I found people here who value me, not for what bloodline I carry, but for who I actually am. I built something of my own, for the first time in my life." "I'm not asking you to give that up," Damon said. "I'm asking what you need, so that whatever happens next is something you actually choose, instead of something decided for you by everyone else in a crowded room." For the first time since he had arrived, Elena's expression softened just slightly. "That's the first time you've asked me that question in a very long while." They stood together in the quiet garden as the evening light faded, and though Damon knew there were no easy answers waiting for them, he understood that real change would have to start with listening, truly listening, to the woman he had once taken for granted. Whatever came next, whether Elena chose to return, to stay, or to build an entirely new path between both worlds, Damon knew one certainty above all others. He would not make another decision that shaped her life without her voice guiding it every step of the way.